So like, it's less of a we like to blame William for things and more William likes to do really terrible shit and we like to try to solve it.
Ladies, gentlemen, and those with the good sense to do away with the whole notion, I welcome you to the premier audio medium for all your Fazbear entertainment needs. The Freddy Fazbear Pizza Podcast. Note, FFPP is not responsible for any loss of appetite, disinterest, dismemberment, or other legally classified statuses. So strap in and enjoy.
Hello and welcome to the Freddy Fazbear Pizza Podcast. I'm your host of the Toast, where I toast talk about Five Nights at Freddy's like we always do. But today we're starting with not FNAF because I wanted to talk briefly about the digital Circus finale and the series as a whole. I don't have a lot to say because most of my thoughts are the second half of my reaction, which you can see over on Right Toast. I'll link it right here. That's most of my thoughts about the actual finale itself and what happened in it. But I wanted to talk about the reaction to the finale that I keep seeing all over the place because, oh my God, it's insane. I want to say straight out the gate, my initial reaction is I really, really liked the finale, even though there are things to criticize about it. It's not a perfect finale. It's not a perfect show. Nothing's perfect, right? There are definitely things to criticize. I think it's completely fair to not like the finale, or to criticize the finale in any way. It's art. Art is meant to be criticized. That being said, I've seen like 4 to 5 good, reasonable negative takes on the finale. And then the other 90% of people I've seen saying they don't like the finale, I think are just fandom brained or media illiterate. It's insane. I've always been of the mind that like whatever, if the vast majority of people who watch your thing don't understand your thing, you did poor storytelling. And then because of that, that's it's a critique on you on the art, not the watcher. In the same way that like if an entire class fails a test, that's a reflection on the teacher, not the class, right? This is maybe the first time in my life I've seen so many people not understand a piece of media that is so clear in what it is and what it's trying to say that genuinely that just isn't true for this case. Like it's like shaking my core beliefs to see something so direct and clear with its messaging and what it's trying to say and have so many people miss it that, look, either you're deliberately missing it or you're just that media illiterate. I don't know anymore, dude. Like for the people who are still arguing that Jax isn't trans femme, hello? The only thing that Goose could have done more is have Jax look directly at the camera and say it out loud. Like, it's not even subtext. It's text. It's the text. Like, it's not even subtext. And then I've seen people make the take because, people were being media illiterate about this. So Goose came out like directly on Blue Sky and basically confirmed like, yes, Jax is trans femme. Like, this is the text of the show. And there's people who turn around and go, oh, I literally saw a tweet. I don't obviously look any tweets I'm referencing. I'm not going to give any usernames. Don't go looking for them to be rude or harass people. I just want to complain. All right. Don't be a terrible person and harass people. I just want to be able to complain. I saw a damn tweet that was like, I can't believe also, I'm not going to even touch on the matter of how, fucked up it is to compare a trans woman to J.K. Rowling of all people. But there was a tweet that was like, I can't believe Goose had to pull a J.K. Rowling and change the narrative of her story after the fact, or like add new details to the story after the fact with that Blue Sky post. It's like, motherfucker. Again, first of all, crazy to compare a trans woman to J.K. Rowling. That's fucked up. Regardless, Goose wasn't adding anything to the narrative in that post. Goose was explaining the narrative to the people who had blinders on. It is so damn clear. And, then we get to the argument of so many people being like, oh, well, oh God, there's just so many takes of this show that are so very bad. And I don't want to say that if you think the finale was bad, you're dumb. I'm not trying to say that. Because like I said at the beginning of this, okay, there is reasonable critiques to make about this finale, and there are valid reasons to dislike it. But there's a lot of really dumb reasons that I've been seeing on Twitter. Holy shit. Oh my God. And I've never seen, it feels like it's mass paranoia. It feels like mass delusion. It feels like, frankly, an extension of the insanity that was surrounding the fandom in the weeks leading up to the finale. That going into it, they were already predisposed to hate whatever it was going to be and are just not engaging with the text to continue the tirade. I don't even know, dude. I have no idea. But like, it's just insane to me. It's just insane to me. And now, before I get too into there and I just rant for the next 30 minutes, no one's going to want to watch that. What I do want to bring up, and what I think is relevant for this podcast, the reason I'm bringing it up now, I gently grab you, FNAF fans. I am FNAF fan. You are FNAF fans. Not every media is supposed to be, is made to be theorized about. Now let me explain. Engaging with text and forming fun conspiracies and theorizing about stuff, that is, it's always a fun thing to do. I love doing it. I've done it with Digital Circus. It's a fun thing. But I have seen, and I think part of it is because a lot of current Digital Circus fans are bored FNAF fans. I've seen a lot of people critique the show for not explaining the how. Saying like, what do you mean it's over? We don't know who's running the computer systems. We don't know who CNA is. We don't know if they're ever going to be able to unabstract people. We don't know if... Hey, that's not the point of the show. You can still make theories about that, and that's still fun to do. But the amount of people I've seen in the FNAF fandom criticizing Digital Circus for not spending its limited screen time on explaining who's working at CNA is crazy to me. Guys, that's not what the fucking story's about. It is a narrative story about characters. The inner workings of the CNA business don't fucking matter. Like, I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. I feel like, and to the I've seen a lot of people I've seen a lot of takes of like, well, they never confirmed that, like, it's crazy they never unabstracted anybody or they never saved anybody from abstraction. Because clearly there's something there with Jax. It's like, okay, yeah, hey, it's left purposely ambiguous. Because the important thing about abstraction is the emotional storytelling around it, not the digital technicals behind how it happens and if you can code your way out of it or something. It's the emotional storytelling. That's the important part. So like, hey, maybe someday they can. As far as we know right now, they can't. And that's the story. I think Alex really hit it. Alex Rokon, the voice behind Kane. He had a really good, insightful post about it that I tend to agree with. Now, again, just because he's on the cast doesn't mean this is like a canon interpretation. This is his interpretation, which I quite like. If I remember, I'll put the post right here. But he, because a lot of people, I think rightfully so, compare the abstraction to, I don't know if I can say this on YouTube without getting in trouble, ending one's own life. We'll make it really wordy so I don't get in trouble on YouTube, which I think is a very apt metaphor. But he comes up with a different metaphor that I also very much like, being that, yes, that is part of it, but it's also, it's not a death. It's, I'm just going to pull it up so I don't misquote this guy. So much as it's like losing oneself in any kind of mental health spiral, including addiction. How everyone visits Jax and the other abstractions reminds me of visiting a loved one in a long-term care or inpatient treatment. Yeah, no, I really, really like that interpretation, especially with how they treat Jax and, the other abstractions at the end. Giving them a place to work on themselves and a place to be calm and heal, but like still separate in a place that they can't hurt other people. And like, and he even clarifies, apparently Goose at some point said abstraction is permanent outside of the show. But the show itself leaves that ambiguous, and that's where, you know, theories and AUs come from. If you want, that's my biggest takeaway. A lot of people were, a lot of the takes of like, I hate the finale because XYZ. For a lot of people, the XYZ was like directions the story could have gone but didn't. Like, oh, well, I hate that, you know, abstraction wasn't fixed. You know, that Jax is abstracted forever. It's like, okay, when you watch a story and you dislike an ending for the path it took, let me introduce you to fan fiction. Let me introduce you to fan works and continuing the story in your own way, in a way that makes you enjoy it. Like I'm real tempted. If I have the time, which I probably won't, but I'm real tempted to write a little bit of a fan fiction myself of, oh, I forget their human names, but the real world versions of Zubul and Gangle having their meet cute at Zubul's bar, because I think that's a really cute little fanfic idea. But yeah, I don't get it, man. As far as like, you know, just to make sure it doesn't feel like I'm just glazing the whole time. My, you know, personal critiques with the ending is a lot of it I think is just time constraints. You know, Goose was very set on this being a 9-episode series. I think it could have benefited being 12. There's a lot packed into that finale that maybe could have been, you know, spread out over a couple episodes, and you know, the whole series could have been not like the finale should have been 3 episodes. No, but like the 9-episode series would have probably had a lot more breathing room if it was like 12 45-minute episodes. But you know, the pacing, you know, it's a little quick because of that. But as far as like the actual substance there, the direction it went and like the messages it's portraying and the point of the show, I adored it. You know, I really, really enjoyed it. And again, there's other things you can critique that I think are completely valid. And even it's valid to say, I didn't like the finale because I wanted the story to go to a different direction. That's a valid critique too. I'm not saying that's an invalid critique. That's a valid way to, you know, that's a valid thing to dislike about something. But it just, the amount of takes that I've seen that are just poor media literacy. I think it's just, I don't know if it's because it's a particularly young majority fandom or what, but I don't think I'm alone in saying that the fandom around Digital Circus is one of the most toxic fandoms I've seen in a very, very long time. And hand in hand with that is also one of the most media illiterate fandoms I've seen in a very, very long time. Man. And hey, I'm not saying all of you, because I'm in that fandom too. So I'm not saying everybody who enjoys Digital Circus is a media illiterate child. I'm just saying a lot of media illiterate children really like that show. You know, I mean, at least they claim to like it, because for the past half a year, reception has been mixed. No, I really, really enjoyed the finale. I had a great time with it. If you want to see my full reaction and breakdown for it, like I said, the VOD's on the second channel, and I'll be putting shorts up on there a lot. I'm getting close to, I've been working up on a backlog on shorts. I'm hoping that I can start posting 2 a day on the second channel. So we'll see. But yeah, I just want to get my thoughts on the reaction out there, because in my Digital Circus finale reaction, we talk about the finale and my thoughts on the finale. But like, it's been an insane weekend seeing so many different and awful takes on Twitter. It's just crazy. And also, you know, I think I'm not the one to speak on this as much, because like, look, I am non-binary. Happy Pride Month. I don't know if this is going up in Pride Month, but still. But you know, I don't have the lived experience of like someone who's transitioning or wants to transition like that. So I don't think it's my place to say what is good and bad representation, but I tend to agree with a lot of people that a lot of people saying that Jax is bad representation, that's crazy. No, it's so like as Goose has very clearly explained in this show, hopefully Leroy looks like actually I don't know if Leroy, I think Leroy as far as Aurora still goes by he him, but he looks like he's on his way to figuring it out. We'll say that, and the way the story is written, and what Goose has said in posts and all this, it's very clear that like this is what happens if you do not find your true self and you bury it and you push anyone away who tries to help you with that. This is like a really good almost, I don't want to say cautionary tale, but like it's I think even Goose herself at some point posted like this is like the worst version. No, it was an interview. No, it was a panel where one of the voice actors said that Goose told them, hey, this character is like the worst version of myself. Like, what if I made every wrong choice in my life? And like because of that, that's still, it is important to tell all kinds of stories with all kinds of people. Just because somebody in like some kind of minority, the character is like a bad person who does bad things, that doesn't make them bad representation. It is important to tell all kinds of stories with all kinds of people, right? And I do want to be clear, after the finale, it is incredibly clear why Jax does everything that she does throughout the series. That being said, still a bad person, So yeah, but I don't want to. I haven't seen a lot of that. I think most people agree like this is completely explained yet not excused Jax's behavior throughout the series. No, I quite enjoyed it, and I have seen that like the other critique I've also seen is like the accusation that the finale is the Jackson Friends show. It's like, well, first of all, Jax is dead for like half the episode, like so they do have to deal with that, but I'm confused on why people are bristling at the idea that there are two main characters of this story, of Pomni and Jax being the two main characters. Because, like, did we think this was an ensemble show? Did we think this was going to be an ensemble cast, or that there's going to be two main characters and, supporting cast, like a show? I don't know if maybe it was because we've all attached so dearly to all of these characters that people are upset that like their schmoopy didn't get their time to shine, but it's not an ensemble show. It's a show with main characters in it. I don't know what you want. Like very clearly, Pomni and Jax are the main characters of the series, and rightfully so. We know enough about Pomni that we've gotten Pomni's backstory already. This was where we get Jax's backstory and the resolution of both of their character arcs. So like, yeah, like I don't know what else you wanted from that. And that's not even to say the rest of the cast had nothing to do. The rest of the cast had plenty to do. I think it was incredibly important to see Gangle's mini character arc in the finale of not being able to cry for Jax. That's a really important story to tell, and it was done very well. The only one who didn't super have an arc in the last episode was our most confident characters. Zubul and Kinger with a bucket on his head. Like they didn't need a character arc. Their character arcs have pretty much resolved already. And even then, like Ragatha's is resolving near the beginning of the episode. Gangle has a mini one on top of the one that she's already resolved. Like the two open-ended threads going into the finale, like of character arcs, or Jax and Pomni. So it makes perfect sense. I don't understand the critique of how dare the show have main characters. That's a weird critique to me. But yeah, all in all, I like the finale a lot, and it has been an insane fandom to watch 10 feet away with two fences up. That's crazy. My best wishes to whatever the next main glitch show is going to be for inheriting that fandom. Good luck. But let's talk about FNAF. I got plenty of Patreon questions pulled up, so we're going to go down the list. Once again, I take questions via podcast and email I take questions via Patreon and email. If you want to go on the Patreon, you can submit questions that I will answer first and guaranteed to answer as to the best of my ability unless I start really getting swamped by them. But I also take questions from everybody on the email, Freddy Fazbear Pizza Podcast at gmail.com. It's in the description. It's in the description to copy and paste because it's a pain to type out. But we have some Patreon questions to go through. Our first one from KV, she, her. If the Mimic never left the FNAF 6 pizzeria and was stuck down there all the way through to ruin, he would have had a run-in with Michael and or gotten caught up in the fire. This is, of course, ignoring the fact the Mimic doesn't exist when FNAF 6 was released, but I want to hear your thoughts on this. That's a great point, KV. I think it's tricky because we don't know for certain exactly how extensive the FNAF 6 fire was. Because on one hand, it looks like the entire building goes up in flames in FNAF 6. But then we go to Ruin, where we get to explore those burning rooms a bit more. And it seems like only the rooms animatronics would be in had burners, right? Like the main room doesn't have burners. The room with the computers does. One of them does anyway. But then like the side rooms don't have, they have burners. It's hard to say. But the important thing to note here is in the very basement where the Mexus console is and the Mimic is being held doesn't have burners. So, the fire aspect, it seems like you're able to be in the FNAF 6 building, yet avoid the fire. That seems like a possibility. As far as having a run-in with Michael, I think it is likely that Michael and or Henry would have encountered the Mimic. I wouldn't even doubt if maybe when Henry found the Mimic there, the thoughts of bringing Charlie back entered the mind, and maybe that's why he captured the Marionette instead of, we don't see it burn. I have a whole video on this after Ruin, which, in retrospect, not super accurate. The acronym for Mexus is fully wrong, I'll tell you that much. But this is in a pre-Secret of the Mimic world. But I talk about, in Ruin, we see 3 burn rooms, and 3 buttons to activate them. And in FNAF 6, we only ever see Scrap Trap, Scrap Baby, and Molten Freddy burn. We never see Lefty burn. So the theory was, what if Henry didn't join Michael in the fire, stayed there, kept the Marionette trapped, and was essentially trying to bring Charlotte back with the Mimic? It's a fun theory. There's not a lot of evidence for it besides the fact that it's weird we never see Lefty burn. But Lefty is... and you could argue like, oh, well, Lefty's just Charlotte, so like that's a victim. Sure, but so is Molten Freddy, so like what gives? So yeah, it's a weird little scenario there. And I think you could argue that. But back to your point specifically, as far as Michael or Henry, theoretically, if the trickiest part is that the Mimic seems to be trapped by Gregory and Vanessa down there. Because, we see it. We see the cement bags, we see the cement poured over the door and the destroyed vent on the way out of the room, and we see Gregory's backpack being left nearby. So it's almost like the visual storytelling is telling us like, hey, Gregory and Vanessa trapped the Mimic in this room. Now, that's not necessarily true. It's totally possible that, Gregory left his bag outside of that room, and like when he was down there, Vanny was like, don't go in there. But at the same time, the Mimic has his walkie-talkie. So it makes more sense that it fell out of his bag on the way out or something like that. So there is a lot of ways to interpret it. If Gregory and Vanessa trapped it in the basement, then that's even more points to the camp of the Mimic wasn't originally down there. I think what probably makes the most sense, without any further information, with our current speculation, which is that, after Secret of the Mimic, William has to track down the Mimic and capture it via Chico's party world. If that's true, I could see William just keeping the Mimic in the sister location bunker for the future, like for the time being. And eventually, after everything going on with Security Breach, it turns on and goes to investigate what's going on in the FNAF 6 pizzeria, and they have to trap it there before it kills them, essentially. And they do. They manage to successfully trap it in that little basement, and that's a we'll handle that later situation. So yeah, KV, you're totally right to point out that like somebody has to deal with this thing. It can't... too much happens at FNAF 6 for it to just be in a basement and not be a problem. But thank you for your question. The next question from them, Cameron, they, them. Something has been on my mind lately since Secret of the Mimic came out in relation to Gregory. Could it be possible that Gregory is meant to represent the possible future of where FNAF is heading when it comes to interpreting what possession is? This isn't really based on anything I can point out directly in any of the game, but it's more of a bunch of amalgamations. So, and then we have a large theory. I've tried to dilute the theory to like its essentials. So essentially the theory that Cameron shared is it possible that there's been some sort of invention, possibly like an internal illusion disk or something, that allows a human to be possessed by a spirit? It allows the brain to be possessed by a spirit. And that Gregory is being possessed by David with this device. But as a failsafe to the device, the GGY/Dr. Abbott personality is in the device. So it's also in Gregory's mind. So if David's connection ever falters, Gregory doesn't come back and ruin everything. It reverts to GGY until David can reconnect. It's an interesting... thank you for your question, Cameron. It is a very interesting concept. Like you've readily admitted, there's no evidence to say this is even possible or likely. However, I wanted to play in that space. Is it possible that there has been a mechanically assisted possession? I think that's fair, especially because we learn that we learn in Fazbear Frights that the soul seems to be able to attach to metal a little bit easier than other things, which is kind of where we get Remnant and the pliability of Remnant from. So the idea of like adding some sort of machine to Gregory to allow David to possess him is, there's something there. And yeah, it's also similar in a way to B7, where the mechanics attached to a child take on their own personality. And even when removed, then those mechanics are still there. Now, that's more mechanical than possession. But, like you said, there's no direct evidence for this. But there's a lot of amalgamations that are approximately next to it. I want to say out the gate, I don't think this is true. I don't think this is likely even. But it is fun to play in this space. It is interesting to play in this space of like, okay, could there be essentially, like, for lack of a better term, medically assisted or mechanically assisted possession? And like, kind of. Like, there's enough adjacency that you could make this argument. But the lack of evidence here makes me hesitant to be all gung-ho for it. So especially David being the possessor, because I really don't see any reason for David's ghost to still be around. Ostensibly, yes, he was a neglected child, so there's some trauma there, but ostensibly he was a 5-year-old that got hit by a car. That doesn't really scream vengeful spirit to me. Like I like the idea of David's spirit being the white tiger because it's this playful spirit wandering around the facility. But the idea of like David being around 50 years later is wild. Why wouldn't he have moved on by then? Especially now that Edwin and Fiona are dead. If the ghosts can connect to each other in the afterlife, the idea of David seeing his mother and father and not going, okay, let's spend an afterlife together. Like, come on, that's probably what happened. So I don't know of any reason for David's spirit to still be around, unless there's something we don't know of. So that already I'm hesitant on. The idea of maybe being the crying child, I could see that, that was kind of William's whole goal of putting someone back together. If he can take over an organic body and have the crying child possess that'd basically be bringing back the crying child. That's like the best case scenario for that project. So I could see that, and then that's why it would be like a mechanical assistance to possession. But even still, we don't have evidence for it. Maybe if we are going back to the sister location bunker, that's where we'll find it. But until then, I don't see it. Thank you for your question, though. The next one comes from Andrea. They, them. There's a question you answered regarding Afton being at fault for David's death. I disagree with your answer for these 2 reasons. So I said no, I don't think there's any reason for it. 1, you asked why would William Afton go out of his way with no apparent motivation to do such a thing. I counter with the Garrett scene in the movie as evidence that William Afton has done it before. He went what appears to be several states away to kidnap and kill a random child with apparently no motivation. Why not David? 2, William Afton is an easy target, as he's a total a-hole and deserves it. Even if he maybe wasn't directly at fault, it is still his fault. We love to blame anything bad on him, just like I do with my cat. Something falls and breaks, cat's fault. So, therefore, it is indeed William Afton's fault. David is dead. And probably my cat's to blame as well. I love my cat, by the way. She never cares if I blame things on her, as long as I give her treats. Oh, thank you for your question, Andrea. And that's a mood. But I would refute your refutation. So, one, you asked why would William go out of his way? I counter with the Garrett scene, where he appears to go several states away to kidnap and kill a random kid with no apparent motivation. The key here is he appears to. I'm hoping and praying that by the end of the third movie, we'll get the motivation of why William Afton went states away to kidnap and kill a random child. Because it feels really weird to, as a plot point, be like, William Afton randomly killed this kid states away for no reason. So, like, I feel like there is a motivation. We just don't know what it is yet. So I would argue that the lack of a motivation in the second of three movies, or by the second of three movies, is not proof of no motivation. It's just showing us that we don't have the motivation yet. And to counter your second point, that's not an argument. Look, I get it. I love pinning stuff on the cat or whatever, but like, we love to blame anything bad on him. Not really. William Afton does do a lot of bad things that we have evidence for. So, like, it's less of a we like to blame William for things and more William likes to do really terrible shit and we like to try to solve it. I get the feeling from this that it's more of a joke comment, but especially like with the cat's idea. But I would say my official refutation is, one, we don't know that William Afton did that without motivation because we're not there yet in the series of movies. Tell you what, if by the end of the third movie we still have no motivation for William Afton doing that, fair on you. Maybe he just kills random kids states away for no reason. And for my second refutation, no. No, you. I don't know. Thank you for your question. Our next one comes from Westward Meadowlark. They, them. Hi, Rye. Sorry for the long post. Feel free to condense. My question is, what is your favorite horror moment in the franchise? My favorite moment in the series is actually when we listen to the recording just after the Mimic takes his revenge on Edwin. During the entire game, Edwin is described as an absent father, valuing his time inventing more than he values his time inventing more than he values his time with his family. The Mimic, after severely injuring Edwin, begins to copy him, and in response to Edwin asking to call for help, it responds with, "Daddy's busy, buddy. Why don't you go outside and play?" It didn't shout or rage or commit any further violence. The program simply mimicked what it thought Edwin would say. Chills ran down my spine when I heard that. I remember thinking, oh my god, oh shit. It was a stereotypical big scare, just a polite, if dismissive reply to a pleading call for help. So to remind the audience of what my question actually is, and to create a smoother segue into the answer, appreciate it, what is your favorite horror moment in Five Nights at Freddy's? Thank you for your question, Westward Meadowlark, and I appreciate that not only you said feel free to condense, which I did, but you gave me that segue. Well-written question. Anyway, I actually wrote a whole video about it. It's old. It probably didn't age super well because I was not very good at making videos back then. But I made a whole video on what I think the best kind of horror in FNAF is and what we need more of. And it's all about Ennard, because I think the best horror in all of Five Nights at Freddy's is the last 2 hours of the Ennard night in Sister Location. For those of you who don't remember why, the Ennard night, it starts pretty normal, where Circus Baby as Ennard keeps taunting you and trying to get into your office. But remember, we're playing as Michael Afton, and these are spirits possessing these machines. Around halfway through the night, maybe two-thirds in, Circus Baby keeps talking to us, but she uses the voice of Elizabeth Afton. You know, Elizabeth essentially using her own voice, either using Circus Baby's technology or just with the possession itself, and begins taunting Michael like that, saying things like, just let me in. Isn't this why you're here, to be with her? She's right here. Open the door. That's the shit that I think FNAF could really benefit from. That, essentially, because if we think about what's happening here, Ennard is using the voice of Michael's dead sister to coax him into letting it kill him. Right? Michael Afton knows there is a monster on the other side of this locked door, and as he's holding it shut, the monster in the voice of his dead sister goes, "If you open the door, we can be together again."
Yee.
Oh, I hope. And look, we have potential for this because that's like the Mimic is built to do that. You know, I cannot wait for a sophisticated Mimic to hit us with some shit like that in the game where we eventually beat it. I mean, look, especially if Edwin is alive somehow and going to be helping us in the next game, the idea that like Edwin dies halfway through the game or whatever, because as we're defending ourselves in Fiona's voice, the Mimic hits like the "Honey, it's been so long. I just wanted to hold you again," or like something like that. Like, ooh, that's horrifying that a monster can just perfectly recreate the voice of a dead loved one. That's the shit I think that FNAF could really benefit from. I have a whole video on it. I'll link it if I remember. I can't tell you if it's a good video or not. It's been a long time. I probably it's all right. But thank you for your question, Westward. Our next question comes from Madison She Her. Thought I'd make a sequel to my last question. Last time I asked what FNAF location you'd want to visit if you lived in universe. This time let's do your least likely to visit. Well, again, follow the same rules as last time, that you're visiting as a customer. You won't physically be harmed during your visit. Thank you for your time. Okay, this is the easiest one so far. Circus Baby's Party World. Pizza World. Circus Baby's Pizza World. Circus Baby's World. I don't like clowns. I don't fuck with them. Like, that's really what it comes down to. Like, if I'm not going to be harmed, and it's just like, what's a bad time to be at? There's an argument for the 90s Freddy's, because like, that place is gross. So that's also an argument to be made. At least Circus Baby's was clean. But like, I don't like clowns, and it's all clown themed. Okay, so like, yes, we know this location and animatronics are vaguely clown themed. Have y'all seen Circus Baby's Party World from the books? It's like a fucking avalanche of clowns at all times. I'm good, dog. I don't want to be there. To be fair, in the games, never opened. So if we're disqualifying it, I think we do go 90s FNAF, like FNAF 1 Freddy's. Because that place is just disgusting. The animatronics smell, there's roaches, there's rats, it's greasy. It's just a bad place to be. There's a reason that place failed. So it's between those two for me for different reasons. I'd say I would avoid Circus Babies more if it was open. If it's not, it's FNAF 1 Freddy's. But thank you for your question. So those are all of the Patreon questions. I do have one more pulled up for the email. So again, if you want your answers question on priority, you can submit them via Patreon. But if you want them via email, then if you just want to send them in at all, you can email them to Freddy Fazbear Pizza Podcast at gmail.com. It's on screen. It's in the description to copy and paste because it's a pain to type out. Our email comes from, this is from Leith, they, them. I find it really confusing that people are so dismissive that the one you should not have killed could be Charlie. First of all, lots of names change around from book to game. The only evidence we have that the in-game puppet's name is Charlie is Charlie Door in a game that barely features her. The main reasoning I see is that she's characterized as loving, nurturing character, not a vengeful one. Where do we get that characterization? From her grieving father. Of course, he paints everything she did in the light he sees his daughter as. Perfect. Also, the father that she was so desperately avoiding in order to continue her possession antics that he had to literally forcibly trap her in Lefty. It also completely ignores that she could easily be loving and caring towards murdered children while also being cruel and vengeful toward the man who killed them. I know Scott Cawthon is a pretty terrible writer, but come on, even he could conceptualize of a character with more than one dimension. Also, her idea of kindness and saving the children is to keep them forever trapped in a dreamlike purgatory where they keep unknowingly killing and maiming innocent Fazbear employees. Perhaps her keeping the MCI was with her more about revenge and less about kindness. After all, she only seems to start implementing her happiest day protocol after William has been successfully springtrapped by the spirits she directly controls. The only thing that contradicts this is her voice lines in UCN, where she says she doesn't hate him, but he needs to stay out of her way. My interpretation of this has always been that she's simply lying. She's not even going to give William the closure of knowing who his tormentor is. But I would say the movies even doubled down on this, and everyone sort of just brushed over it. Anyway, there's probably some key piece of evidence I'm missing that proves they have to be separate characters. Feel free to rip this theory apart. Thank you for your email, Leith. This is a really compelling theory, I want to say. Now, on the face of it, I do have a big problem with it, but we'll get there. I want to play in this narrative first, because it is really interesting, and I think it is a better and tighter story to have the one you should not have killed be Henry's daughter. And Cassie, Charlie, whatever you want that name to be. If it's Cassie, Emily being the name, then that is really interesting because you raise great points. The FNAF 2 guy is nervous about the Marionette. The Marionette is definitely vengeful. It's following William to the FNAF 3 location of all places. The idea that like he needs to trap her in Lefty to even keep her contained. She is clearly one of the more knowledgeable spirits about the afterlife, so everything else that is possible there could make sense. And the movie is a great piece of evidence. The fact that like in the FNAF 2 movie, Charlotte is an antagonist. She wants to kill. She wants to kill every parent that ever betrayed her. Every parent in general that like she's at first going over after the parents that like in a way led to her death. But it's very clear that she was going to keep killing random parents after that. So like in the movie, she is a vengeful spirit in the movie. But I think the key here, and the big issue, is the presentation of UCN. Because of the ending where it's Golden Freddy spring locking into the distance. And if you try to death coin Golden Freddy, you get killed. It's the only one you cannot death coin. That is way too purposeful to be hand-waved. For me, that's the big reason why the vengeful spirit, I think, has to be the spirit inside of Golden Freddy. And to that point, the movie also presents that as evidence too, because it's the spirit inside of Golden Freddy who's keeping William at bay in between the first and second movie. So like clearly the movie's also presenting that. I was going to say, is there even an argument that can be Charlotte? Not really, because she has to be the puppet. That is Charlotte, Emily, and or Cassie, whatever you want the name to be. Because here's a good point. There's no solid evidence in the games that the Marionette spirit is named Charlotte, but like we just assumed that because of the books. Now, could this be a retcon moving forward? I hesitate to say, because that part of the story doesn't super affect the current part of the story, so what would the point of retconning it be? And if the movie is meant to be the retcon for it, well, like I said, the movie also presents the spirit of Golden Freddy holding William back. So I think the reason why I can't fully get on board with the theory, it's not because you've presented a bad narrative. The narrative in this theory is wonderful, and it is evidence-backed, and is really, really solid. The problem is, while you have an excellent theory to positively argue that the Marionette is the vengeful spirit, it has nothing to address the negative argument of the Golden Freddy spirit not being the vengeful spirit. Because the games present Golden Freddy being the vengeful spirit very directly. And then we have the week before where Golden Freddy is kind of the ringleader very directly. And then we have the movie where the spirit of Golden Freddy is holding back William Afton very directly. And then we have Fazbear Frights where, Andrew is the vengeful spirit of those books who has black curly hair. And wouldn't you know it, when reaching into Golden Freddy, for a moment, one of the characters in a different story sees black curly hair. So it keeps getting repeated over and over and over again that the Golden Freddy spirit is the vengeful spirit. You need to disprove that for this, because you can't say, well, that's Charlotte Emily, because that has to be the puppet, right? Or that you can't be like the spirit of the Marionette is the spirit of the Golden Freddy suit. That can't cross. So I would say this is a really, really solid theory if you can somehow prove that the vengeful spirit isn't the Golden Freddy spirit. Because every other point that I look at the Golden Freddy spirit, it's pointing it for it to be the vengeful spirit. Because even if you just want to take UCN, you can argue that the Golden Freddy cutscene at the end could be explained in many ways. When I made the games only timeline and we didn't have the book for information, I made the argument that with only using the games, Michael Afton makes pretty decent sense as a vengeful spirit. So my explanation for Golden Freddy was he was throwing, William Afton is besting all of these challenges. Well, let's emotionally cripple him. Let's take his biggest, worst thing that he did, the death of his youngest son, and rub it in his face. In that way, the one you should not have killed is the crying child still, but the vengeful spirit is Michael Afton. It's Michael Afton basically being like, this child is the one you should not have killed, and it was his machines at the end of the day, regardless of Michael Afton being the one to actually do the murder. It was complicated and messy, and it's not something I believe in, but that's what I mean. Like, for this theory to hold water, you'll need to explain why in all these times that the game seemed to imply or nearly directly state that the golden Freddy spirit is the vengeful spirit, why isn't it? So I would say that's what you really need to focus in on. Other than that, like you said, great logic here, especially with how ever-present the puppet has been in the current timeline with the plushies, the Nightmarion plushies all over the place. The fact that Jackie is Nightmarion coded, the fact that there's puppet designs all the way back to MCM. Clearly the puppet is still important in some way, but so is Golden Freddy. So that needs to be addressed. But if someone can find a good way for that, I like this theory a lot. I will say, I think there's really good arguments for the Marionette to be the vengeful spirit, and also thematically it makes perfect sense too. But unfortunately, it's been reiterated several times that Golden Freddy is. So like, how do we disprove Golden Freddy is the vengeful spirit so this better theory can stick in its place? Because frankly, it's a little bit better of a narrative too for Henry's daughter to be the one to take down William, like she does in the books, So yeah, I like it a lot, but it does have that big issue. But regardless, thank you for submitting it. That's my big issue with it. If that can be addressed, I like this a lot. But once again, if you want your emails, if you want your questions answered on the podcast, send them in via Patreon or email submission to Freddy Fazbear Pizza Podcast @gmail.com. Send this description to copy and paste because it's a pain to type out. Quick thing, I always forget to mention this on the podcast. This channel is partnered with GamerSubs. Use code RYTOAST to get 10% off your entire order. I genuinely drink this shit at least twice a day. I've got the non-caffeine flavors throughout the day. I've got a caffeine flavor around lunch so I can perk myself up a bit. Whenever I work out, I make sure to use their Gamer Aid, which is a creatine hydration formula. Genuinely, I just like the product. Look, I make money when you use my code. I get a little bit of a kickback. They don't pay me to say anything. I just make money when you use my code. So like, genuinely, I just like this product. And I use it a lot. So yeah, never forget, if you're getting any Gamer Subs, use code RYTOAST, 10% off your order. But until next time, as always, thank you for watching the Freddy Fazbear Pizza Podcast, where the pizza abilities are endless. We hope to enjoy your future patronage. Bye-bye for now.